The series begins with a woman named Linda talking to her neighbor, Jeff Dahmer. She's complaining about the awful smell coming from the air shaft between their apartments. Jeff tells her he had stored a large amount of meat in the fridge and forgot to plug it in, so the meat went bad. But she reminds him he said the exact same thing a week ago, and she even saw him throwing bags of meat into the trash, yet the smell is still there. Jeff apologizes and tells her the fish he was raising had died, which made the smell even worse. He promises he'll take care of it when he gets back from his errand, then leaves. We then see posters and photos all over the neighborhood of several missing people. Later, Jeff goes to a bar and meets 3 young men. He tells them he works as a photographer and an artist, and he needs a model to draw and photograph. Whoever agrees will get $50 an hour. 2 of them say no, but one of them, named Tracy, agrees because he's poor and needs the money. Tracy goes with Jeff to his apartment so he can photograph him. The moment Tracy walks in, he smells a horrible odor filling the place. He asks Jeff to open the window quickly, but Jeff refuses and says he'll turn on the AC instead. While Jeff is opening the fridge, we see that he's keeping a human head inside, but Tracy doesn't notice it. Tracy also notices a strange-looking barrel in the corner of the room, and he starts to worry. He tells Jeff he wants to leave and that he changed his mind and doesn't need the money. He tries to escape, but Jeff stops him, threatens him with a knife, and handcuffs him. He forces Tracy into the room and makes him watch a horror movie before they start the photo session. Tracy sees blood on the bed and becomes even more terrified. He realizes Jeff is not a normal person. Jeff begins the photo session, but Tracy, in pure panic, hits Jeff, manages to open the locks with great difficulty, escapes the apartment, and runs into the street. He sees a police car and immediately tells the officers everything that happened. The police rush to Jeff's apartment with backup and begin searching the place. They find the head in the fridge, along with photos of many murdered men and skeletal remains belonging to multiple victims. They open the barrel and find it filled with acid and body parts of the people Jeff killed, which he was dissolving to get rid of the evidence. They also learn he had been eating parts of his victims after killing them. The police arrest Jeff immediately, confirming he is the unidentified serial killer they've been searching for. The police contact Jeff's father, Dahmer, and call him in. They tell him what his son has done. Dahmer is shocked and explains that he and Jeff's mother have been separated since Jeff was a child. He says Jeff was always strange but very quiet. When Jeff was 4 years old, he had a hernia surgery, and from that point on his behavior became different, possibly because of the anesthesia. The police begin interrogating Jeff. He refuses to get a lawyer, remains calm and obedient, and starts telling them everything about his life since he was a kid. A flashback shows him at school giving his teacher a strange gift, a jar filled with fish from the lake. The teacher knows he's odd, and after he leaves class she gives the jar to another student, which becomes the beginning of Jeff's distrust toward her. When Jeff goes home, he finds his mother pretending to have committed suicide. He calls an ambulance right away, only to learn she's a drug addict and mentally unstable, and she fakes suicide often. This greatly upsets the father, and they fight constantly. Jeff gets used to the ongoing fights between his parents, and since his father traveled a lot, Jeff spent most of his time alone. One day at dinner, Jeff smells something foul coming from beneath their wooden house. His father checks and takes Jeff with him, discovering a dead animal under the house. Dahmer notices Jeff's fascination with animals and starts teaching him how to dissect them. Later, they go into the woods looking for dead animals, bring them home, and dissect them so Jeff can learn about anatomy. We see Jeff growing older into a high school teenager, with an increasing obsession with anatomy. He's the only one in his class who enjoys biology and looks forward to it. One time he wasn't satisfied with just dissecting in class and asked the teacher if he could take the specimen home to practice. Unlike the other students, who were terrified, Jeff was excited. At home, he begins experimenting by placing bones in acid and watching them dissolve. Jeff is also the only one among his friends who isn't interested in girls and doesn't like talking to them at all. At that time, Jeff's father tells the police that he and Jeff's mother had separated while Jeff was in his senior year of high school, after she discovered her husband was cheating on her. She insisted on taking David, Jeff's younger brother, with her, but she left Jeff behind because he had already turned 18. She was also upset with Jeff because he would ask his father for advice about anatomy and never asked her, and she accused him of hating her just like his father did. She told him he never shared anything with her, and that he always believed his father whenever he called her crazy. She left Jeff and went to live with David, while Jeff stayed with his father. As time passed, Jeff's father kept leaving him alone in the house for long periods while he traveled. Eventually Jeff began to feel like he was the problem, that everyone hated him, and that's why they always left him. One day, while driving his car, he saw a young man about his age standing on the side of the road, looking for a ride to a certain place. Jeff offered to take him to his house first to hang out for a bit, and then drop him off afterward. The young man agreed and got in, and Jeff learned his name was Stephen. When they reached Jeff's house, the place was empty because his father was traveling again, as usual. The two young men started drinking, then played some sports. Stephen enjoyed Jeff's company at first, but Jeff suddenly started acting strangely. Stephen became suspicious and tried to leave, but Jeff asked him why nobody ever wanted to spend time with him, then started crying. At that moment, Stephen realized something was seriously wrong and tried to escape quickly, but Jeff grabbed him and hit him on the head repeatedly until he died, without Jeff fully realizing what he was doing. Jeff collapsed emotionally afterward, having no idea how to handle what had just happened. It was the first time he had ever killed someone. Then an idea came to him, to dissect Stephen's body the same way he used to dissect animals. Strangely, Jeff felt a sense of excitement because it was the first time he had ever seen human organs. He then cut Stephen's body into pieces, put them in bags, and loaded them into his car to dispose of them. But the police noticed him swerving as he drove and suspected he was drunk. When they stopped him, he told them he drank a lot of beer because his parents had just separated, and that he was taking out the trash in the car. When they learned he was only 18, the officer told him he'd let him go this time because he was still young, and they allowed him to leave. Jeff returned home, dissolved the body in acid, broke up the remaining bones, burned them, and scattered the ashes in the yard. Back in the present timeline, the police and the forensic team begin digging through the soil in the yard and find tiny fragments of Stephen's bones. When they asked Jeff during the interrogation why he scattered the bones all over the yard, he told them it was because Stephen was his only friend, and he didn't want him to be far from him. When they asked him about the second murder, he told them that at the end of senior year, the school held a ceremony for the top students. All the honor students were taking photos for the yearbook, and Jeff slipped in to take a picture with them, then walked away before anyone noticed. But when the students found out he was in the shot after the yearbook was printed, they were furious. And when Jeff got his copy, he discovered they had erased his face and shaded it over in black. He got really upset and angrily scribbled over all the honor students' photos. His father and his new wife, Sherry, walked in and saw the mess and the smell of beer, and his father humiliated Jeff in front of her. Later he found out Jeff hadn't applied to any colleges, so he took him to enroll in the science program. But Jeff failed his first semester because he never attended lectures, and the university decided to expel him. As soon as his father found out, he forced Jeff to enlist in the army. His job there was assisting a doctor because of his background in biology. Jeff actually enjoyed it, and 2 years passed, but then he was discharged because he assaulted a fellow soldier and injured him. His father, frustrated and disappointed, refused to take him back home. Jeff ended up living with his grandmother, Catherine, who lived alone. He started looking for work until he got a job at a restaurant. One day he told his grandmother that he didn't feel normal, that he felt different from everyone else. She told him it was because he'd grown distant from church, and that praying again would make him feel better. Jeff instantly realized no one would ever understand what he was really feeling. One day, the restaurant owner told Jeff to go buy a new uniform because his clothes weren't appropriate for work. At the clothing store, Jeff noticed a male mannequin and suddenly got an idea. He hid inside the fitting room until the store closed. Then he took the mannequin and brought it home, keeping it in his room as a friend, to comfort him and distract him from the thoughts of killing that kept coming back. When his grandmother tried to enter Jeff's room, he stopped her and said he preferred to handle things himself. But she became suspicious and entered while he was away. She found the mannequin. When Jeff returned and realized she had thrown it out with the old junk, he got upset and argued with her, saying he just needed a friend, nothing more. Later, Jeff was fired from his job and started looking for another until he got hired at a medical lab. Over time, he began stealing blood bags and drinking them at home. When the lab discovered the bags were missing, they fired him. Jeff went back to drinking heavily. One night at a bar, he met a young man. They rented a room together and drank heavily. Jeff kept trying to keep himself awake so he wouldn't relapse into killing, but when he woke up the next morning, he realized he had killed the man without even noticing. He stuffed the body into a large suitcase and brought it to his grandmother's house. After making sure she wasn't home, he dismembered the body and disposed of it, keeping the head in a box in his room. This was Jeff's second murder, 9 years after the first. Both times he hadn't intended to kill, but something inside him made him feel pleasure when he did. That's when he decided from now on he'd do it on purpose. He began luring victims intentionally to his grandmother's house, taking them to the basement, drugging them, then killing them. He admitted to the police that he murdered 3 victims deliberately in her home. Over time, his grandmother started noticing a foul smell, but Jeff told her it was from experiments he was doing on animals. He later confessed that he used acids on the bodies or sometimes cooked them to reduce the odor. One day, Jeff brought a young man named Ron to the house. His grandmother heard noise and came downstairs, finding Ron unconscious. Jeff said he just had too much to drink. She insisted on staying with them until Ron woke up so they could send him home. The next morning, they put Ron on a bus and let him go. He woke up later in a hospital after collapsing on the street, and he told the police what Jeff had done. Officers went to Jeff's grandmother's house but found no evidence. Jeff told them that Ron had been drunk, so he brought him home to keep him safe. They believed him and didn't suspect anything. We learn that all of Jeff's crimes were intentional. He wasn't insane or hearing voices urging him to kill. One day, Jeff's father took him, his grandmother, and Sherry out for dinner as a family. His father was heartbroken over what Jeff had become. He asked Jeff about a locked box he used to keep photos in. Jeff panicked because he had hidden one of his victims' heads in that box. His father insisted on seeing what was inside. Jeff said he lost the key, so his father went to get a knife to force it open. When he returned, Jeff handed him a key. He had quickly removed the head and replaced it with magazines. His father was relieved, thinking Jeff was finally getting better. Later, Jeff lured a young Chinese man home and drugged him, but the victim realized what had happened and escaped straight to his parents' house. They reported Jeff to the police, and he was sentenced to jail. He served his time, but his father filed a petition for early release, and Jeff got out halfway through his sentence. His father soon noticed Jeff wasn't any different and grew deeply discouraged. Jeff was eventually forced to find his own apartment because his grandmother couldn't handle his behavior anymore. He chose a quiet neighborhood mostly inhabited by black residents. The police presence there was low, making it easier for him to do whatever he wanted without anyone noticing. His neighbor was Glenda, the woman who appears at the start of the series. Jeff began luring young men to his apartment by claiming he was a photographer and needed models. He offered them large amounts of money to convince them. One day, he brought home a 14-year-old boy, got him drunk until he passed out, and started taking photos of him. When Jeff ran out of beer, he stepped out to buy more. When he returned, he found the boy outside trying to escape, but he was too intoxicated to run. The neighbors had already called the police after seeing the boy in that condition. Jeff told the officers the teen was his friend and that they lived together, but he was simply drunk and couldn't speak clearly. The police asked for proof that the boy was okay, so they went up to the apartment with Jeff. Inside, Jeff showed them photos as evidence, all while another victim's body was hidden in the other room. The police didn't notice anything, and in the end, they believed Jeff's story and left him with the kid before walking away. Glenda kept pleading with the officer to investigate Jeff, insisting that she was sure something wasn't right about him, but the police ignored her because of her dark skin. The scene then shifts to a deaf young man named Tony who lives with his mother and sisters. Tony struggles because he lives in a small town where he can't find a job or make friends due to his dark skin and his hearing disability. He always dreamed of becoming a fashion model, so he decides to move to a bigger city. There, he finally achieves his dream and starts working as a model. After some time, he meets Jeff, and the two grow closer. They become good friends and start sharing everything. One day, Tony agrees to go with Jeff to his apartment. There, Jeff tries to drug him to kill him like the others, but for the first time, Jeff feels like he doesn't want to lose him, because Tony reminds him of himself. Both of them had lived their entire lives alone. One day, Tony tells Jeff he has work and will come back in a week. Jeff assumes Tony wants to distance himself like everyone else, so he grabs a hammer to kill him, but hesitates at the last second. He then feels frustrated with himself, thinking he's become weak. At that moment, he hears knocking on the door. Tony had forgotten his keys. Jeff lets him in, then hits him on the head and kills him. After that, he dismembers him, cooks the pieces, and eats them. Later, Jeff learns that Tony's family is looking for him and raising donations to cover the search costs. Jeff donates money, then returns home and calls Tony's family to tell them their son is never coming back. The story goes back to Glenda, who starts smelling strange odors and hearing screams coming from the ventilation shaft next to her apartment. She calls the police again, and they tell her they'll send someone, but no one shows up. She keeps trying to figure out what's happening in Jeff's apartment, but she gets nowhere. She also realizes the police ignore her because the neighborhood is mostly black. Glenda spends her days terrified for herself and her daughter. One night, she wakes up to someone screaming near Jeff's place. She calls the police again, but they still don't care. The next day, she meets a new tenant in the building named Dan. Later, she finds out Dan became friends with Jeff, which worries her even more. After a few days, she notices Dan has disappeared. She goes to his apartment and knocks, but he doesn't answer. Determined not to stay silent, Glenda reports everything to the building owner. He becomes worried and realizes something is definitely wrong. He confronts Jeff and gives him a 30-day eviction notice. Jeff gets angry and insists he'll fix the odor problem and that he hired a cleaning company, but the owner refuses to back down and returns the next day. Jeff then goes to Glenda's apartment, apologizes for everything, and asks her to retract her complaint. He promises she won't smell or hear anything disturbing again. But Glenda refuses, telling him she's sure he's doing something wrong, she just doesn't know what it is yet. Jeff begs her to let him stay in the building. She tells him she'll consider it only if he tells her what happened to Dan. Jeff denies knowing anything, saying he hasn't seen him in days. Glenda gets angry and kicks him out of her home. The story moves forward to after Jeff's arrest and interrogation. His father, Lionel, asks to see him, bringing Jeff's lawyer along. The lawyer assures him Jeff won't get the death penalty because it was banned at that time. Meanwhile, the victims' families start holding protests demanding the death penalty be reinstated specifically for Jeff. Lionel and the lawyer try to convince Jeff to plead insanity in court. They tell him about a similar case that happened years earlier, where the killer was declared insane and moved from a life sentence to a mental hospital for a few years. But Jeff refuses and says he isn't insane, he meant to kill every one of his victims. His father gets upset and begs him not to throw away their last chance. Jeff simply tells them he doesn't mind dying and isn't afraid. Meanwhile, Glenda suffers from nightmares for days and can't sleep in her apartment. One night, she goes downstairs and sleeps in front of the building door. She discovers that all the tenants have been doing the same thing since the incident. In the morning, the building owner tells them the property will be sold to the city within 2 months to be demolished, and each family will receive compensation to move elsewhere. The day of Jeff's sentencing arrives. Every victim's family, more than 17 in total, stands up and speaks about the pain he caused them. The judge sentences Jeff to 900 years in prison, essentially a life sentence for each victim. Lionel breaks down, confronts Jeff's mother Joyce outside the courthouse, and blames her for the family's collapse because of the medications she was taking that made her neglect her kids. He accuses her of abandoning Jeff. She fires back, saying he is the reason Jeff became what he became. No father teaches his kid how to dissect animals and preserve their organs. Jeff begins serving his sentence, and Lionel continues blaming himself, confessing to his wife Sherry that he too struggled with dark thoughts when he was young. Meanwhile, Joyce becomes overwhelmed with guilt and decides to end her life by turning on the gas. But her other son, David, saves her at the last moment. After some time, Jeff starts receiving letters from people obsessed with him and what he did. Some asked him to send them signed notes in exchange for money. One letter is from a girl named Alice who tells him he's become a popular scary figure for Halloween. Jeff is thrilled that people admire him, just as many as those who hate him. His inflated ego starts irritating other inmates. One of them eventually stabs him in the neck because he despised what Jeff did to his victims. Jeff is taken to the hospital and monitored, but eventually recovers. The fan mail keeps coming, and it becomes the only thing that makes him happy. It gives him a sense of validation he never had in his life. Later, another serial killer, John, is executed by lethal injection. The execution is broadcast on TV. John says he has no regrets because he's religious, at peace, and certain God will forgive him. Jeff becomes deeply affected by this and goes to the prison chaplain. He asks how John can be so sure he's going to heaven while Jeff feels he's done unforgivable things. The chaplain tells him that if he's truly remorseful, he should repent and seek salvation. Jeff asks to be baptized, and the chaplain and the prison administration approve. He gets baptized at the same time John is baptized elsewhere. When a religious inmate named Scarver hears about Jeff's baptism, he becomes furious, feeling that Jeff could never be equal to true believers. Jeff changes and decides to repent and stop harming anyone. He becomes calmer and more peaceful. One day, Jeff is cleaning the prison with his friend Jesse. Scarver joins them to help. Suddenly Jeff hears Jesse screaming, Scarver has killed him. Then Scarver turns to Jeff, telling him he doesn't deserve to live and that he won't allow a man who ate human flesh to keep breathing. He beats Jeff with a metal bar, hitting him in the stomach to make him feel the pain he caused his victims, then kills him. The police call Lionel, who collapses upon hearing that his son is dead. Later, scientists from a French university asked to purchase Jeff's brain for research to understand what was wrong with him. Joyce agrees, but Lionel refuses and insists on honoring Jeff's will. We learn that Jeff left a will requesting his body be fully cremated and that he have no grave. The court rules in Lionel's favor, and the judge states that analyzing Jeff's brain would be pointless and wouldn't reveal the reasons behind his behavior. In the end, Glenda writes a letter demanding a memorial be built on the site of their demolished building to honor the victims. She explains she doesn't want people to remember only the crimes. And that's the end of the monster. DAHMER. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the summary, hit like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.